The wide plains of Wyoming stretched endless beneath a copper sky. Wind whispered through dry grass, and dust swirled around a lonely ranch house, a crooked structure that looked almost swallowed by the land. Inside lived Thomas Reed, a man of 43, hardened by sun and solitude. He wasn't ugly, nor weak, nor cruel, but he was alone. Cattle work didn't leave time for courtship. The town's dances felt like a foreign language, and after years of hearing laughter in the saloon, when folks joked that old Reed'll die without ever kissing a woman, he'd finally decided enough was enough. On a chilly evening, by the light of a kerosene lamp, he wrote the letter. It was short, honest, and plain. I have land. I have work. I have room in my heart for a wife. If you can stand the dust, the cattle, and a man who doesn't talk much, then I'll be waiting for you. Weeks later, a reply came from Clara Dawson, a woman in Kansas. Her handwriting was neat, her words gentle. I am not the beauty men write songs about, but I can cook, clean, and work beside you. I only ask for a man who won't mock me and who will give me a chance. So Thomas sent for her. And then, for 2 long months, he waited. He mended fences, polished the house, even bought new curtains from Cheyenne. Every day, he pictured her, slim, modest, with a soft voice. The kind of woman who'd barely make a sound when walking through a room. His loneliness was ending, he thought. Finally, he'd hear another voice echo across the empty ranch. The day came. The whole town turned out at the dusty train station. Mail-order brides were rare, and everyone loved a spectacle. The whistle blew, steam hissed, and Thomas's heart pounded like a hammer as the conductor shouted, "Cheyenne, stop!" The wagon doors creaked open, and then she appeared. Clara Dawson stepped down slowly, gripping the railing. She was enormous. Not fat, but tall and broad, with shoulders like an ox and arms strong from years of labor. She stood a full head taller than Thomas, towering over the crowd. The murmurs began immediately. "She's twice his size," someone snickered. "Looks like he ordered a farmhand, not a wife." Laughter rippled through the station. Thomas's stomach dropped. This wasn't what he'd pictured. This wasn't the quiet, delicate woman from his imagination, but Clara's face. Her eyes were soft, uncertain, and kind. She looked around nervously, clearly hearing every cruel whisper. She clutched her single worn suitcase tighter, as though bracing herself against the storm of judgment. Thomas stepped forward. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he tipped his hat. "Miss Dawson?" She nodded. "Yes, Mr. Reed." Her voice was gentle, with a lilt that made the gossip seem uglier by contrast. Thomas swallowed hard. "Welcome to Wyoming." The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Clara sat stiffly in the wagon, her hands folded over her lap. Thomas stole glances, unsure what to say. Finally, she whispered, "I know I'm not what you expected. Most men turn away." Thomas gripped the reins tighter. "I sent for a wife who'd be honest. You were. That's all I asked." She looked at him then, surprised. A faint smile tugged at her lips. But the town wasn't so forgiving. At the general store, whispers followed them. At church, pews creaked as folks leaned to mutter. He could fit in her shadow. Imagine her cooking. He'd starve before she set the table. Clara kept her chin high, but Thomas saw the way her hands shook when no one was looking. And yet, on the ranch, things were different. Clara worked harder than Thomas had dreamed possible. She carried hay bales with ease, her strength making light of chores that usually left him sore. She cooked hearty meals, her bread rising golden every morning. And when coyotes howled at night, she wasn't afraid. She sat with Thomas on the porch, their silence comfortable, watching stars sprawl across the dark. For the first time in years, Thomas didn't feel alone. But the town's laughter only grew. At the saloon, men raised glasses to the giant bride. Women whispered that she must have tricked him. And slowly, Thomas felt the pressure building. One Saturday, after a supply trip, a group of ranch hands blocked his way. Their leader smirked. "Hey, Reed, how's it feel sleeping under a roof with someone who could toss you clean over the barn?" The men roared with laughter. Thomas clenched his fists. His face burned. He didn't answer. But Clara, standing behind him, heard it all. That night, she sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Thomas, if you want me gone, I'll understand. I've been laughed at all my life. I won't hold it against you." Thomas looked at her strength, her kindness, the way she had filled the silence of his lonely home, and for the first time, his voice shook. "Clara, I don't want you gone." The days grew colder, and so did the stares from town. Every trip into Cheyenne was the same. Whispers, laughter, smirks. Thomas Reed felt the weight of it pressing on his shoulders, though he tried not to show it. Clara never complained, but he noticed the way her eyes dimmed when mothers pulled their children away, whispering, "Don't stare." He noticed how she carried herself taller, like a soldier bracing against fire. One afternoon, the church announced its annual harvest festival. It was the one event where the whole town gathered. Food, music, contests. Thomas dreaded it, but Clara insisted. "We'll go," she said firmly. "If they laugh, let them laugh. We can't hide forever." So they went. The festival was buzzing with fiddles and laughter. Children darted between pies and candy stalls, while ranch hands showed off their broncos. When Thomas and Clara arrived, heads turned immediately. A hush swept through the crowd, followed by muffled snickers. "Look, the giant bride." "Careful, Reed. Don't let her step on your toes when they dance." Thomas's jaw clenched, but Clara only held her chin high, her hand steady on his arm. Then came the contests. There was log splitting, hay bale lifting, a tug-of-war rope thick as a bull's neck. Men bragged, flexed, and sweated under the sun. The crowd cheered for every swing of an axe, every grunt of muscle. And then, one of the ranch hands sneered loud enough for all to hear. "Why don't we let Reed's wife show us what she can do? She's twice the size of any of us." Laughter erupted. Thomas froze, humiliated. But Clara? She stepped forward. She walked to the log pile, lifted the axe in one hand, and in a single clean strike split the wood clean through. The crowd gasped. She lifted 2 hay bales at once, one on each shoulder, and carried them across the yard, dropping them without breaking a sweat. Children's eyes widened. Men exchanged stunned looks. Then came the tug-of-war. 6 ranch hands on one side, and Clara, alone, on the other. The rope snapped taut. Dust rose, and slowly, steadily, with muscles like iron, Clara pulled them all forward, planting them face first in the dirt. For a moment, silence. Then, cheers erupted. Children laughed with delight, clapping. Women shook their heads, smiling in disbelief. Even the ranch hands, red-faced and panting, couldn't help but laugh at their own defeat. Thomas stood in awe, not of her strength, though it was unmatched, but of her courage, her refusal to bow. That night, as the fiddles played, Thomas finally led Clara onto the dance floor. The whispers started again. She'll crush him. He'll look like a child in her arms. But when Clara took his hand, something changed. They moved together in perfect rhythm, her steps light despite her size, his smile wider than anyone had ever seen. And the crowd fell silent. For the first time, they didn't see a joke. They saw a couple, proud, unashamed, and whole. Weeks later, the jokes stopped. When coyotes threatened a neighbor's herd, it was Clara who helped drive them off. When storms tore fences down, it was Clara's hands that rebuilt them alongside Thomas's. Slowly, respect replaced ridicule. People began to see her not as the giant bride, but as a woman of strength and heart. One evening, Thomas sat with Clara on the porch, watching the sun sink over the plains. He turned to her, his voice low. "Clara, you're not what I expected. You're more." Her eyes shimmered in the fading light. "And you, Thomas, are the first man who ever looked at me and saw more than my size." He reached for her hand, and in that quiet moment, the loner rancher and the woman twice his size knew. They had beaten the world's laughter. Years later, folks would tell the story with a smile. "Remember Reed and Clara? The town laughed when she stepped off that wagon. But they laughed no more. And their ranch became a place of warmth, laughter, and respect, built not on appearances, but on courage and love." Thank you for watching. If you want to get more that kind of stories, press like and check out our channel.